Buenos días a todos. Es un placer estar aquí hoy con vosotros. En esta mesa en la que vamos a tratar liderazgo digital, tenemos speakers internacionales que vienen de todas partes del mundo. Veréis que va a ser una conversación, vamos a intentar hacerlo todo lo fluida que podamos, interactiva. Y también vamos a intercambiar, porque estamos en un entorno multicultural, inglés y español, ¿vale? Y luego, posteriormente, las preguntas también, las que queráis, pues las podremos hacer en inglés y en español. Lo primero que voy a hacer, dada cuenta del perfil de las ponentes que tenemos hoy aquí, es presentarlas y hablaros un poquito de cada una de ellas, porque merece la pena conocer su background. Y luego ya pasaremos a tratar cuestiones específicas sobre la iniciativa W20 y las principales temáticas que se han estado tratando y discutiendo en la misma. Sentiros libres de levantar la mano y interrumpirnos si queréis añadir algo, hacer algún comentario, tenéis alguna duda, ¿vale? Queremos que os sintáis cómodos y, como os decía, que estemos como en una conversación. Bueno, en primer lugar voy a presentar a Gulden Turktan. Gulden fue nombrada, fue fundadora del W20 en Turquía en 2015 y desde entonces forma parte del grupo de la delegación de Turquía para el W20, que ahora, para las que no lo conozcáis, que imagino que todas sí, pero nos lo van a explicar fenomenal. De hecho, de esta parte se encargará Gulden, y actualmente es la presidenta de la junta directiva de International Women Forum, también en Turquía. Además de eso, Gulden es fundadora y presidenta de Agilidad, que es el Women Entrepreneurs Association of Turkey. Y actualmente también forma parte del Consejo Presidencial. Ha participado en muchas iniciativas que promueven el liderazgo femenino en relación con el G20 y con la emprendeduría de mujeres. Es una speaker internacional que participa en muchísimos foros y que ha concretamente aportado mucho en temas relacionados con la macro y microeconomía relacionadas con programas de la inclusión de la mujer en el ámbito profesional. Al margen de todo esto, con anterioridad, fue una alta ejecutiva de una compañía de ingeniería suiza. Por otro lado, tenemos a Susana Balbo con nosotros. Susana es argentina y Susana también, el desarrollo de la carrera de Susana también fue inverso. Empezó como empresaria, luego estuvo trabajando dentro del ámbito político, como política en el Congreso argentino, como, si no me equivoco, Susana, como diputada y vicepresidenta de la Comisión para Pequeñas y Medianas Empresas. Desde ahí lanzó varias iniciativas que luego la llevaron a ostentar la representación, fue nombrada por Macri como representante argentina en el W20, que actualmente ostenta la presidencia, ¿no?, de la delegación argentina. Pero hay una cosa de Susana que yo creo que tenéis que saber, y es que es la primera mujer enóloga en Argentina y que tiene una empresa que se dedica a la venta y comercialización, producción de vino en Argentina. Es decir, Susana es una vanguardista en todos los sentidos. Tenemos a Mari Carmen Bernal, que Mari Carmen es de México y tiene otro background también muy distinto, pero muy complementario y enriquecedor, porque Mari Carmen es directora del Research Center for Women in Senior Management y también es profesora del Instituto Panamericano de Alta Dirección de Empresas. Pero además Mari Carmen tiene un PhD en pedagogía por la Universidad de Navarra y bueno, formación en las principales universidades del mundo. Yo cuando lo he leído me he quedado abrumada y al margen recientemente recibió el premio Mujer Construye por su labor investigadora en temas de educación de la mujer. Al margen de todo eso, Mari Carmen es una de las representantes del W20 también en México y ha escrito varios libros que merece la pena leer. Mari Carmen nos hablará también sobre el tema del liderazgo femenino y inclusión digital. Tenemos a Elizabeth aquí también con nosotros. Elizabeth es fundadora de WeConnect, que es una iniciativa muy bonita que preside, ¿no? Y que nos gustaría también luego yo quiero que ella nos cuente un poco sobre esta iniciativa, pero aparte también Elizabeth es coautora de un libro que os recomiendo leer, que se llama Buying for Impact, How to Buy from Women and Change Our World. Es un tema de máxima actualidad y creo que también será interesante sacar algunas conclusiones, ¿no? Sobre este tema. Elizabeth, a pesar de vivir, ¿no? y haberse educado en Estados Unidos, tú eres de nacionalidad mexicana, ¿no? Con lo cual ya veréis que hoy haremos pues eso, ese intercambio cultural también idiomático. Luego tenemos a Erin Watson Lin, que es Senior Fellow at Perth USA Asia Center. Y me encantará, Erin, porque ahora hablaremos más cosas sobre ti, pero también que nos expliques un poco sobre esta iniciativa para que también tengan hoy la oportunidad, las personas que nos acompañan, tanto aquí como en streaming, de conocerla. Erin ha participado, si no me equivoco, creo que es la única desde el inicio de la iniciativa de W20 y como representante de Australia. Además de todo esto, bueno, Erin ha publicado numerosos papeles y opiniones y ha participado en numerosas conferencias en numerosos países y es siempre en temáticas relacionadas con el liderazgo femenino y la inclusión de la mujer. Pero por último, y no menos importante, tenemos a Ángela, que Ángela participa, es presidenta y fundadora de Global Competitiveness Empowerment Forum, que es una organización sin ánimo de lucro que tiene como objetivo promover la responsabilidad social corporativa y que está registrada en el Ministerio de Comercio de Seúl, en la República de Corea. Ángela, además, bueno, tiene numerosas carreras y especialidades y también forma parte de la delegación del W20. Nos gustará muchísimo, Ángela, que nos cuentes sobre tu experiencia participando en la mayor parte, casi como Erin, de todas las delegaciones, de todas las celebraciones del W20 que han tenido lugar y también tu experiencia actualmente como fundadora y presidenta del GCF. Vamos a empezar, si os parece. Una vez hechas las presentaciones, Gulden, a mí me gustaría mucho que nos hablaras sobre el W20, cuándo se fundó, por qué se fundó, ¿no? Y en función de, según tú nos vayas contando, pues también que os sintáis libres de ir interviniendo, dando vuestra visión y sobre, bueno, pues cada una de los congresos que han tenido lugar y donde hayáis podido participar. Gulden, tienes la palabra.
I'll try. Hello. Great to be here in Madrid. In my earlier life, I was frequently traveling to Madrid, a beautiful city. and Katerina and yourselves. I always adore the professional and hardworking woman of Spain. I was working in ABB. Katerina told me start from childhood, so I will skip a part of it, but start from earlier. I was working in ABB, ASEA Brown Boveri, a Swedish engineering company. As you can imagine, from an engineering company, I was the only woman in the top management. I joined as controller, and we had a lot of problems. It was the merger of ABB, ASEA, and Brown Boveri. We had a lot of problems, especially accounting problems. Then I made a decision and I said, if we don't have past, we will not have any future. So let's see what is the sales in this territory in the past. And everybody said, oh my God, forget about it. This is late 80s and ABB was there in 1900. You cannot go back and this is terrible work. Nobody will help you there. And I was the executive, and I had an executive assistant at that time. A number of them existed. And I told her, look, we have to do this because we have to know what this company has done in this country. And we did that, succeeded that. And I was very famous in ABB. She has not only closed the year, it was the second year actually, but she also cleared the history, sales history. So I was very famous, but then there was a lot of things. I never realized, because I was the only woman, it was only, the door was being opened, but they had one thing. They were saying, forget about going into meetings. Okay, I'll continue working. Then I understood that I was working too hard and my male companions were not working too hard. If I join them in the meetings, I will understand that this space is too much. So I will get it down. But it didn't happen. But then they said, we have a great idea. Why don't you take over legal affairs? Okay, I said legal affairs. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a business school graduate. I have economics degree. But the head of ABB from Zurich said, but I came here to interview two lawyers. We were going to appoint a law firm. But then you said, the law here is not that clear, so we have to have 3 opinions. And I asked each of them, and they said, I know the best. So instead of knowing the best, it's better not to know what's going to happen and get their opinion, so you got the job. Okay, I said. Then they said, a woman at this, they were writing letters. A woman at this age, at this responsibility, it's impossible, fire her. And the country manager was sending them to me. You have done something good here, apparently. Continue. So that was my ABB experience. But in that experience, I saw that women are too few. And when they see you, they panic. What is this now? What shall happen? Then I was in very good contact with the industry, a lot of industrialists, etc. They also happen to be all men. Okay, that's the history, so that's also okay. But then I came to the understanding that there is a problem here. But I didn't mind. We formed Agilidad, the Women Entrepreneurs Association of Turkey, which is the top leading association for women works. So as a founder, I tried to reach out to them, but at the same time I became the country manager, so I couldn't touch a lot of women because I had to clear out the results for the company and work hard still. Then after 20 years, my contract was ending, and I said, I will quit ABB. They said, you can't do that. You cannot quit a very good company, a very good salary. I said, yes, but how sustainable it is. I will quit. So I quit. And then I had a lot of offers, and they told me to be consultant. You cannot leave this industry. You have to carry on, etc. Okay, I said. But at the same time in Turkey, the economy is going up and down, up and down, up and down, and continued down, down, down after 2008. It was not very much like to say it's going down. Okay, we are surviving, survival mode. So it was much worse. But then I had a family fund, and I had a hotel in the south of Turkey. I had my consulting job coming from ABB, and I tried to help women. And they said, why don't you come and be the chair for Agilidad? I said, but this woman issue is slightly different. There must be something else to be done there. And then I was presented as the new, we went to elections, of course, a lot of fuss, and I was elected. And there are other women organizations in Turkey, and they said, this is not a typical NGO leader. What should I do to be a typical NGO leader? I'm not a typical NGO leader. What's the profile? Because head of HR, etc., you give the profile, and let's see, search for it, etc. I know what they mean, but I said, but maybe we'll look at it in another perspective. At that time, there was a lot of literature coming, academic works coming, and we were trying to follow it up. For example, women make the consumption decisions. So all the car manufacturers, which were very male, started, hey, come on, have a look at this design to women designers. Was it real or not? But the literature was boiling. And I said, look, we have to sell this idea of woman inclusion. I mean, diversity is, I was in charge of diversity. I made diversity presentations all over the world, especially in the Middle East. But diversity is something, I'm not touching your topic, I guess, but diversity is, let's have a woman over here. Inclusion. You have to listen to her. She has to talk, she has to contribute. So it's inclusion we need, and a lot of literature started to come up from that. We were following World Bank, UN Women, UN, IFC, whatever literature, Boston Consulting Group, whatever comes in front of us on women, on gender issues. So we were following that. And I said, we have to sell this woman gender issue. They said, forget about it. Selling is not there. Why? I cannot go to the government and say, I have a great transformer, hey, take it. I have to sell it. Equity, parity, they understand it, they know, but it doesn't exist. You have to sell it. They said, oh, this woman coming from a crazy business world, go ahead, sell it. I said we need to have a value proposition. When woman is there in the board, they add to the decisions in the board. So you have to include them. Inclusion is for that reason. I mean, it's not for them sitting and getting money. But the money part was also very important. When woman gets money, for whatever amount, that money comes to the house. And that money comes, this is research that says that, I'm not saying that. That money comes to the house, that money comes to the education of the children, education of the parents, and health of the family. This is so important money. You have to make it possible that women have that money. And is it going okay? Okay. Then we had this money issue taking out, and then there was another thing happening, G20. You remember that it was G7 only, not G20. G7 is the real leaders, that's what they tell me, or the fancy businesswoman. the fancy G7 didn't contribute much to the world. So G20 was created. In G20, the turnover or GDP of the countries were 85% of the world. If you can get 85% of the world in a proper shape, the later 15 will fall into place. World Bank came with a end poverty program. That's a very interesting thing, because if you can take the end to the middle, that's going to create growth in your country. If you take the upper end, it also works and it brings more money. So my NGO coming from upper end, we said, but we have to help women at the upper end as well and lower end as well. In the lower end, you have a lot of women, but less return. In the upper end, you have a lot of women, much less women, but the return is higher. So we have to help all the ends as well as the middle. What can we do? And when you look at the G20 pictures, it's all male. Chancellor Merkel with a blue jacket. Sometimes, because we can spot her, sometimes Christine Lagarde, and sometimes, of course, British former minister and Chile's former minister. Okay, they had here and there women, but no picture of woman actually. At the same time, in Los Cabos in 2012, G20 said, look, we need to do something. And frankly speaking, in between us here, all of our countries are not in very good shape. We are all living through a crisis right now. We have been living through a crisis for so many years. As an economist, I can say that. And the end of the tunnel, not for all of us, is very clear. So this problem, G20, this gentleman in the picture, said, let's find a solution to this. And this first solution came from Los Cabos, Mexico, into 2012, women's economic and social inclusion. Have them included in the economy, so let's see the result, because the research was piling up at the same time. So that was great news. Then came St. Petersburg. In St. Petersburg, the G20 leaders, this gentleman, signed women's financial inclusion and education, which is also a great thing, because when woman touches money, it is going to savings. And if it goes to savings, it goes to investments. If you have taken Economy 101, if you have not, there is a strange equation that says that savings is equal to investments. If you save in your household, that saving is going to go to the bank, and the bank will make it lend to others, and investments in the country is going to raise. So woman is a very crucial person to have the investments and the progress and the development in the countries. So this gimmick was so important. And then came Australia, the Brisbane Declaration, where G20 people, with a lot of work of women behind the scenes, but no woman on the stage, said 25 by 25 until the year 2025. All the countries of G20 has to get down the gap between men and women in economic inclusion. This was the great thing that we were looking into in Agilidad. We had to have a figure. We had to have a follow-up. What gets measured gets better. And this is a measure, this is a global measure, and it's very important measure, because this year the economy is up, women enter into the workforce. This year economy is down, women enter for another reason, because there is no money at home. So women's inclusion into economy has also another shape, U-shape. When it's very poor, they are included. When it's very rich, they are included. When things go well, they are not included. So that's the U-shape in the economy. So we said, great, this is the starting point of a woman's NGO. or women's movement. What can we do? They started to talk about W20. We think we live alone in this NGO, but we understood that we are not living alone. Think tanks, Sherpas behind the government people tried to get W20 up. And we usually visited think tanks. We usually go to New York for UN Women meetings, and we said we want to form up W20. They said, no money, but. No, not money. We want to form it. They said, without money, very difficult. That's correct. Without money, it's very difficult, as usual, in all women NGOs. And then we went to other well-known NGOs, and they said, that's a very good idea. You're a good girl, but your country is going to the other way, where woman needs to be excluded from the economy idea. Are you aware of that? Are you only reading English literature, English publications? No, we said, yes, I'm sure. Then we came to a board meeting in Kagidar. It was going to be my term ending as well. And I said, we have to jump up and down in this country to form W20 because presidency is Turkey and the scenery it needs to be formed. They said, you cannot talk to the president. Yes, he had it was before the coup. The country was again attempt of a coup. The country was again under election period, etc. But I didn't tell to my board that I know him very well, but I will not ask for an appointment because I had made presentations to him earlier, and I know that if you can reason, if you tell him the value proposition is there, he would accept. But it's also okay, his health is not in good condition. At that time, the politics is not in good condition, elections are there. Very unlikely that you will get something through Turkish government. Plus, it's not Turkish government, it's 20 countries to say yes to that. It's an unanimous vote of a new outreach group, Women 20. Yes, we said, and no time left. Turkish presidency started. And I asked my board, but we still need to insist on this. And my board said, oh, you hold on too much to it. We don't have money, we don't have time. The Times is not in the good conditions, but do as you like. That was the board decision, do as you like. And they are telling me, you always tell us if you want to succeed, there needs to be a budget. Where is the budget? We don't have budget for W20. Okay, I said, we don't have a budget, but we have budgets. We have a number of events where the ministers are there. I'm invited to a number of events where ministers are there. And every time into the agenda, W20 formation, W20 formation. Some of the ministers were saying, W20 formation. Found it. What happens, etc. And in the final reception, I saw at that time, President Erdogan was Prime Minister Erdogan, Vice Prime Minister said, we heard you, Gülden. Oh, I said, they heard me. And then, of course, things go on. We forgot about W20 because the year is halfway to the presidency. Then, as an NGO of a big, as the president of a big NGO, you have to accept appointment requests. And I have a day to accept appointment requests. This comes and they say this, that comes and they say that. Gentlemen are coming to a women's NGO to say things. And I said, what's happening? One gentleman came and he said, you know, this will be cancelled in during Chinese presidency. After Turkey, it was China to rule G20. The presidency will lie with China. I said, what is going to be cancelled? And he said, I will not say any further. You have done something wrong here. What have I done? What is it to China to close down? Something is not formed. And they are going to close it down, and they are coming, taking an appointment and telling me that it's going to be closed. But we are not informed that it's opened. And next day, I received a phone call, and we received a letter saying that the W20, with anonymous vote of 20 countries, has been established, and I'm the founding chair of W20. And we were in such a hurry, but the problems didn't go away with the letter, and we had to hurry during the year to have the launch of W20 and then the W20 summit. And a declaration called communique, first ever W20 communique. And this appointment taking is continuing from women and men, and they're saying, haha, now you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. Why? Because now the schools are closed, academia is not there, you will not be able to find a communique, a draft communique. Yeah. And also there are other people coming. Give it to my wife, $1 million she will spend for this. We are all in panic. What's happening now? $1 million to be spent on W20, no communique, nothing to be said. And you remember I said we were following up the literature on women's value add to the economy. And I had a pile of that in my back room in the office, an IKEA moving box with a lot of articles. This is too much. We will get all those articles. It's already read and marked, and take them down one by one, and we will establish a communique. Oh, but the countries are not going to nominate women. The countries did. She was there. You were in Y, but Suzanne was there. Susan Harris-Rumor, you had and Elizabeth was there. Mary Carmen, and we had not 20 delegates, but 20 country delegates. We had 3 delegates from USA. So we had a full table. We had a good communique. And before going to the communique to the 20 countries, we had to get it through the Turkish. Have you taken the local perspective? And the local perspective was a chaos, but we managed to get the local perspective as well. And we got 13 points out of that box. Out of the 13 points, 10 were going into the communique. I will briefly touch upon what they are. One is education. Do I have time?
Yes, you can.
The first one was education, employment, entrepreneurship. I'm coming from an entrepreneurship association, but for that, there needs to be a flow. And in that flow, you need to be educating women. And I very much believe in this. You need to educate women. It also comes, it was STEAM at that time, science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. But I believe in any kind of education, continuing education, just upgrade yourself in what you know, just study something you don't know. Education is the key for women's inclusion. Education, employment, go somewhere, work. Whatever it is, earn 1 penny, whatever it is. But that's the inclusion to the economy if you can earn that money. And then comes entrepreneurship. It's slightly tougher, but many women survive. My colleagues here are going to explain about that. So the first one was education, employment, and entrepreneurship. The second was equal opportunity. See that the companies are providing equal opportunity to women in their raise, in their board seats, in everywhere, in recruitment, first of all. And work and life balance. You know, the caricatures of women trying to keep the baby cook clean with her feet and try to go and earn a penny. Too much on women, so there needs to be a social balance.
Creo, Gulden, que vamos a parar aquí a raíz de uno de los primeros puntos de inclusión para que Susana pueda coger aquí la palabra y comenzar sobre este punto si quieres y luego continuamos con el resto porque me da miedo que se nos eche el tiempo encima y que el resto... Realmente tenemos hasta las 11, pero yo creo que como hemos empezado un poco tarde, por eso, como hemos empezado un poco tarde podemos... esperar un...
We only have half an hour more.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, enhorabuena porque es increíble toda la historia. Yo no la conocía.
No, okay.
No. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I've never heard the story how it was funded, and I think it's amazing, and it has been really tough. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think,
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And one of the main points that you were saying, one of the pillars, is inclusion, no? And I think, Susan, you have also participated since the beginning, no? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about, how important is inclusion and digital inclusion, for the purpose of the W20.
Buenos días, muchísimas gracias por estar aquí, gracias a Catarina por invitarme. I'm seeing many people, I think everybody understands English, so I will speak in English, no problem. Thank you for having me today here. Last year, Argentina was hosting the G20. And I was appointed by the president to be the chair of the W20. What means inclusion? According with statistics, in the G20 countries, there is around 2.47 thousand women living, 2.47 billion of women. And 40% of those women has university level, and 60% of those 40% are out of the task force. Why? Because they need to dedicate many time in their life to look after families, to grow kids, to look after elders or disability people in the family. And that must be measured because has impact in the economy in the world. In fact, if those women that are around 400 million of women that are educated but out of the task force, if we include them plus the women that are in the low level education, the GDP of the world can grow around 6 points, 26 points in total, bringing a huge impact in the economy of the world and also bringing us closer to achieve the sustainable goals for United Nations. So inclusion is very important. If we have all the women coming over into the economy in more equal condition, we are going to have worldwide impact and also in the life of the style of the life and the sustainability of the world. When we talk about digital inclusion, digital is just a tool. Why is a tool? Because when we are talking about undeveloped country and poverty country, those people has less access to internet, less access to education, and women has likely less access than men to have devices. Women don't use devices for business or to get education. Usually they use, most of the women, 35% of them, use devices just for communication with the family to see what is going on with their kids or their family, but not as a tool that can really bring them in another step of education or in financial inclusion or labor inclusion. So For us, to use the digital inclusion as a tool can bring more women in education. When we educate a women, we educate a family. We can get them coming into the task force because they can have work from distance. For instance, if they cannot leave their home for a certain time of the day because they need to look after disabled people, maybe they can have a job through digital inclusion. Or they can get education in order to handle better digital inclusion. So digital inclusion really is a key for developing countries. And something we arrive in a conclusion in the W20 to be, we can be hours speaking about that, but some of the duty of the W20 is to deliver policy recommendations to the leaders in order to become laws that change the life of the people in the world. Some of our recommendation was to improve the access to internet, to lower the price of the data, to achieve data, to have more affordable, to improve the security for women that are online because harassment or bullying happens a lot to women and girls in the media. So we need to assure them they are not a victim of that. And also, it's very important to have to go into the deeper places in the countries, in all the countries and developed countries, to have more people coming over in better quality life and also having better jobs, to have better incomes, and that become a more equal society. So it's very, very important to have the digital inclusion as a tool to improve and to achieve the Sustainable Goal 2030, that is called 2030 Goal for United Nations.
Thank you very much, Susan. You have explained it very clear, and I mean, I think we all, agree with that. How important is digital inclusions for women? And I do not know, Mari Carmen, if what is your view regarding digital inclusion and connecting it with leadership?
Bueno, yo sí voy a hablar en español para meter un poco de interculturalidad al panel. Bueno, primero agradecer a ustedes la presencia esta mañana, que hayan elegido este panel. Agradecer también a Caterina por su invitación. Y para mí es un honor compartir este panel con estas mujeres con las que, además de una misión que nos une, me une un gran cariño y una gran amistad. Entonces, para mí es un honor estar con ellas. Retomando algunos conceptos que han manejado tanto Guldan como Susana en torno al tema del W20 y sobre todo de la inclusión. Me venía a la mente, tuve oportunidad de escuchar un discurso del ministro Justin Trudeau, que se caracteriza principalmente por ser un ministro incluyente en todo el sentido de la palabra. Y él nos comentaba en ese discurso que si la diversidad es un hecho, y la vemos en todos lados, la inclusión es opcional. ¿Y qué quiere decir que la inclusión es opcional? Que no se nace siendo incluyente, se aprende a ser incluyente. Y en ese sentido, hablar de inclusión a quienes tenemos posiciones de toma de decisiones, posiciones de liderazgo, tenemos una mayor influencia o impacto con la gente, necesitamos aprender a ser incluyentes. ¿Por qué se requiere aprender a ser incluyentes? Porque el entorno familiar, cultural, social en el que hemos crecido no necesariamente facilita el que seamos incluyentes. Ayer Gina Ripon, en su presentación, hablaba cómo los sesgos delinean o marcan nuestro cerebro. Y es una realidad que los sesgos son quienes muchas veces impiden, dificultan el que seamos incluyentes. O incluso podemos tener una actitud de inclusión y algo pasa en nuestra trayectoria vital que nos saca de ese camino hacia la inclusión. Yo a esas variables que nos sacan les llamo descarriladores, que necesitamos identificar para ir desarrollando ese liderazgo a favor de la inclusión. Y lo primero que necesitamos hacer como líderes para ser incluyentes es partir de que necesitamos cambiar cada uno de nosotros para ser incluyentes. A veces solemos hablar de que otros no son incluyentes, pero los primeros que tenemos que cambiar hacia la inclusión somos nosotros. Entonces, el primer paso para la inclusión es cambia tú. Hacerla consciente, y en ese sentido retomo lo que decía el ministro Trudeau, hacerlo opcional, es una choice, o sea, es algo que elegimos para hacer. Lo segundo que tenemos que trabajar para ese liderazgo a favor de la inclusión es el aprender a ponernos en los zapatos del otro, es decir, buscar conectar con aquellas características o diferenciadores que tienen los otros, pero con los que podemos de alguna manera entrar en contacto, comunicarnos. Por eso también el tema de la comunicación es muy importante para ser líderes incluyentes, porque muchas veces la falta de comunicación nos lleva a que nos descarrilemos y a que asumamos un comportamiento más de exclusión y no a favor de la inclusión. Comunicación que tiene que ver con un tema de lenguaje, por eso retomando el tema de la inclusión digital, favorece la inclusión digital, la inclusión, valga la redundancia. ¿Por qué? Porque nos permite abrirnos a entender, comprender otro tipo de lenguajes. Entonces, la comunicación también es muy necesaria y muy importante para la inclusión. Y luego la tercera, yo diría variable que nos ayuda como líderes para ser incluyentes, pues evidentemente es favorecer un pensamiento de flexibilidad, un pensamiento de apertura, para entender que la diferencia y la diversidad suma, enriquece. En cambio, la uniformidad empobrece y excluye. Entonces, en ese sentido, el que formemos equipos con pensamientos diferentes, eso también favorece, vamos a llamarle así, como el capital social, la riqueza social que todos los seres humanos tenemos y que sumamos con nuestras diferentes formas de pensar y nuestras distintas perspectivas. Y por último, no podemos dejar de lado que si queremos ser incluyentes como líderes, lo que no se mide también difícilmente pues se puede valorar. Entonces, en ese sentido, la inclusión requiere de una medición, de unas metas, de un dar seguimiento para ir evaluando y valorando que aquello se va llevando a la práctica. Por eso se van a encontrar en muchos documentos, en muchos estudios, que el tema del accountability, de los indicadores, de ir midiendo, es muy importante y necesario para que este tema no se quede en un discurso, no se quede en una moda, no se quede únicamente en un entusiasmo, sino que realmente se vaya incidiendo en un cambio de cultura, en un cambio de mentalidad y realmente seamos parte de esta cuarta revolución industrial que todos estamos viviendo. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Mari Carmen.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Mari Carmen. Creo que de aquí vamos a poder sacar conclusiones muy buenas, sin duda. Yo, Elizabeth, a raíz un poco de lo que estaba contando Mari Carmen, me gustaría que nos dieras tu punto de vista y tu perspectiva, ¿no? desde los Estados Unidos como representante del W20 y también con tu papel de fundadora y presidenta de WeConnect.
Muchísimas gracias a usted y a toda la asociación y mis amigas del W20. Permiso, pero inglés es más fácil, entonces fue en inglés. I'm loving being here. The work of the W20 is extremely important because it brings together a lot of different experiences, a lot of types of expertise. We all agree that we have to use digital platforms in order to make the vision that we all have for inclusion to reach the SDGs, that you know are a driving goal. We have 10 years to reach gender equality. 10 years. So there's a lot of work to be done. We have to use all the tools, all the data, all the research, all of our networks. But those tools, the digital tools for WeConnect International become really, really important. So we are a nonprofit that was created by the world's largest corporations. These are the ExxonMobil's, Walmart's, IBM's, Marriott's, Disney's of the world. And they got together and they said, we want to be the best corporations in the world. We know that women make almost all of the purchasing decisions, but they are invisible as our suppliers. Women do not knock on the doors of large corporations or of governments to try to sell their products or services. So a lot of what the W20 is about is economic, and this is linked to the G20 as well as the G7, it's economic inclusion, it's economic integration, it's making trade easier for these countries so that we have prosperity and opportunity for all of the people of those economies, and in turn the other 15% of the economies of the world. So for women-owned businesses to be able to access markets, to get into supply chains, we've had to build a technology platform that makes it super easy for very large buyers to be able to find women-owned businesses. So we use technology to make it easy for women to self-register for free. In our database, it now includes women-owned businesses based in 120 countries. So you can self-register for free if you're a woman-owned business. And then you can go into the network and you can decide if you want to be certified so that we can help verify in 45 countries that the company is owned, managed, and controlled, at least 51%, by women. So this is important because we want to make sure that we have women have more access to the opportunities to build assets. It's hard to build wealth if you don't have it in the first place. Entrepreneurship happens to be a really powerful way to get very large amounts of money into the hands of women. In our case, we have corporations that spend over $1 trillion or euros a year on products and services, and 1% of that is with women-owned businesses that own a third of the private businesses, half the population, and almost all of the consumer purchasing decisions. So it's just really bad business. And so we have to decide through platforms like the W20 and using technology and linking all of our economies, how do we show up? How do we show up with a voice, but then how do we leverage that we have power? We don't need to be, we don't need empowerment to the degree we have it, but we have to know how to use that power. Part of it is how we spend our money. So how much of our money within the W20 community is spent with other women? We're not trying to keep men out. It's in addition to all the money that we spend with men and their businesses, are we spending any of our money with women wineries or women's research organizations or women's companies or associations like Cogidare or what the women lawyers? There are a lot of women who own their own law firms. Are we spending our money with women-owned attorneys and their firms? So there are very simple steps that we as individuals can take, we as owners of companies, we as leaders in our organizations, using digital platforms to be able to find each other and do business together all over the world. So for me, this is how all these pieces come together in a really powerful way and address what ultimately the G20 is trying to do, which is to have more inclusive economic growth and prosperity, not for the sake of economic growth, but so that everyone feels secure. Everyone has an equal opportunity to reach their full potential. So I'm just very grateful that I get to be a part of this really powerful network of leaders, and that all of you care about these issues, and that there are things we can do to change the way things are today to make it better tomorrow. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And Erin, it will be great, I mean, if you can tell us a little bit about what you are doing in Australia from the digital inclusion perspective. Also, how are things going there? What are, in which types of initiatives are you working on from the Perth Asia also Center, from the W20 perspective?
Thank you. Buenos dias. I don't speak Spanish, I'm sorry. I'm trying. But so thank you very much for having me here. I guess the perspective that I come at this from is from an international relations perspective. I work at a foreign policy think tank. So, I think about the role of the G20, and I think a lot about the role of the W20. And I don't think there's a lot that I can add in terms of what the W20 is trying to work towards. You've all summed that up so beautifully and eloquently. But for me, I sort of think about, how important is it, what is the role of the W20, and how important is it in that sort of international fora that's out there, and the infrastructure that's out there? We talk about, regional architecture and so on in our area. So you've got the G20 and you've got others like APEC that are focusing on women and digital inclusion in particular, and how these actually feed up into policy recommendations, and then how that is or is not actually implemented in our countries. I think that's one of the big challenges, is that we can sit there at the W20 and talk all we like, and even get those through to some of those recommendations through to a leader's communique, but then what happens with it afterwards? And I think that the G20, if you think about it each year, people only really hear about it at Leaders Summit. It's all about the theatre of summitry. It's about the photos and who talked to who, and who forgot to send a car to get that person, and whose fault was that? And, the media goes crazy. It's like a circus. But that's the only time you hear about the G20. When really, throughout that whole year, it's the same with APEC. Throughout that whole year, there's all of that work that goes on behind the scenes, largely from people who receive absolutely no financial benefit from it at all, who are just trying to give back and make the world a slightly better place. And that's where I think a lot of the credit to the G20 and others should actually go to. Conversations for Saudi Arabia next year have already started, and, it's still, what year is it? 2019. And then that summit will be in October next year. So there's this whole lead up that goes into it. And that's where I think the credit's due. But then after that, what happens? What happens to that piece of paper? And I think that even in Australia, we talk a lot with the government about what's going on in the W20. That's how you should work in a track 2 in international relations, a track 2 forum, so non-government to non-government. Track 1 is government to government. But we sort of operate on this feedback loop. So we go and talk to the government and we say, what are your priorities? What are you trying to achieve in the G20 this year from the government's perspective? And then we say, well, we think that's a bad idea. Or we think that in Saudi or in Argentina or Japan, that topic is not going to get anywhere. So perhaps that's not a great idea. And then other times we say, well, we think that this is an idea you should be working on from a government perspective, and this is what we know we'll get through in the W20. So it's this constant feedback loop and kind of holding each other to account. So that's been an effort, because, again, we don't receive funding or anything like that. So you have to the personalities behind it really matter, because they're the ones who pick up the phone and do it. But But one of the great strengths, I think, behind the W20 and all of the engagement groups, there's a number of engagement groups that sit under the G20. So you've got the Labour 20, the Science 20, the alphabet soup of engagement groups. So they all start with, a different letter. Is that if you have an issue like digital leadership, which is, or digital inclusion, or artificial intelligence, or something else, you can get it up on a global agenda really, really quickly. Because you've got all these actors coming from different sectors, they can say, well, actually, we know now that in the gender and artificial intelligence, there are consequences if you don't have women who are actually creating that technology or have a voice in the creation of that technology, and literally a voice as well. So we can actually pick up that issue and say, you know what? All those other things that we were working on were important, but we need to put this on top of the agenda this year. So for all of the criticisms of something like the G20, and it's a talk shop and it's just a summit each year and blah, 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 it actually can be quite influential. So I think in that from an international relations perspective, this is an incredibly important part of that, again, infrastructure that we have out there to talk about these big issues. So that's what I'll say for now, but thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for this practical view and honest view of what is the relationship between G20 and W20.
Yes, actually, I've been B20, Business 20 from 2016, Chinese Presence Year. And I started to join as a W20 member from 2017, the Berlin Summit. You might remember I was alone. And then I was it was successful to multiply into the 3 members. As the corporate social responsibility specialist, I see this labor, financial, digital, and then the rural women or governance, the topics through the lens of different view to form the environmental perspective of business for women's economic empowerment, which is workplace, the supply chain, marketplace, community, and then governance. Actually, yesterday we listened all the topic, a very rich presentation about future of work, what could be our future workers, what about their jobs, skilling or upskilling, all related with the workplace and then supply chain, and also the marketplace. Elizabeth has been really promoting international trade between the women entrepreneur, and also in big corporate environment, the corporate policy for care, the care policy for women employee, also the representative of female executives. So all this through the when it comes to public policy for advocacy through the Women 20, and then also corporate policy to tell the big companies and also the women entrepreneurship is really important. And then it's the W20, since we are really combination of a group of business women association, women entrepreneur, academics, to improve gender policy in various arena, and also that we all together share the really common value, regardless of the difference of each country's situation. So sometimes we feel that every year communique, when we come up with the conclusion of a communique, it looks like almost similar, but because it's the collaborative group intelligence work to find a common commonality, the top priority. So even though we miss sometimes certain countries, really big problem in or also or certain continents in problem, but every year really, as Erin emphasized, that there are lots of efforts and then sweats and the discussion, debates going on to produce really productive way of the advocacy to the G20 leader. Because actually, I would like to really emphasize that, I mean, from the others' perspective, W20 might not be really efficient because the many of policy recommendation are similar. But we, as the 20 countries, rather than majority, we go for pursue consensus, like a G20 process. So if there's one country does not agree a certain policy recommendation, we cannot include in the W20 communique. So even though the visible products of W20 is just 2 or 3 pages paper, but a lot of going on, and then we have sub task force group, and then each delegates member, head of delegation, and all the collaboration partners, they are really pushing gender equality as a mainstreaming agenda. So I was really fascinated by the enthusiasm, the passion, and then hard work. So I think that even though the visible thing is like a tip of iceberg, but there are a lot of going on and under iceberg. So we need not only G20 countries, but also non-G20 countries, and as a whole, working with other international organizations like OECD or UN and other. So we need to really gather our voices and then to promote to mainstreaming gender equality. And I'm so happy to be really a part of this group and this session. And then I hope that good luck for all of us in the future. And then for in Spain, you have a lot of things to contribute for this gender equality, women's economic empowerment agenda.
Muchas gracias, Ángela. Creo que ha sido muy interesante, y a mí en concreto me gustaría seguir escuchándoos mucho más. Por temas de tiempo me dicen que tenemos que ir pensando en terminar, pero yo quería ofreceros, si tenéis alguna pregunta, os gustaría preguntar algo concreto a alguna de las speakers, pues que os sintáis libres de hacerlo también ahora. Sí.
Buenas tardes. Una pregunta para la representante de Corea del Sur. En Corea del Sur se ve muchas veces desde nuestro país como un... Sí. Muchas gracias a todas por las intervenciones, han sido realmente inspiracionales. Mi pregunta es para la representante de Corea del Sur. Quisiera saber si, siendo Corea del Sur un país que muchas veces representa el futuro en cuanto a tecnología, que ya se han alcanzado cosas que probablemente todavía tarden muchos años en alcanzarse en Europa y en otros continentes, ¿cómo han trabajado la representación de mujeres en las carreras STEM y si hay algún sesgo entre hombres y mujeres en cuanto a la tecnología en Corea ahora? Gracias.
Thank you for your question. I feel actually this before trip I feel really meaningful that the Spain's king Felipe recently visited South Korea, and then between two countries that the collaboration for fourth industrial revolution has been discussed and then agreed. And then while South Korea as you know, all know, we have big business like Samsung or LG, and then the all 98% of Korean population are connected, either internet or mobile. But actually, South Korea considers our economy rank as 11th rank, but Global Gender Gap report in World Economic Forum, actually South Korea ranked 115 out of 149 countries. So actually the women situation is very tough, very tough. And then this digital inclusion and then fourth industrial revolution could be a really big chance. But however, the governmental policy institute called Korean Women's Development Institute recently did a survey about 300 women enterprise, asking that whether they are ready for the industrial revolution. You know, 70% of women entrepreneurs said they are not ready, and then they didn't have any preparation work because of the running business is really tough, and then they don't have more room, no room to prepare. But again, they say 90% of the respondents said we need to be like informed or trained or supplied by the public policy to promote. So actually the core area of the area they need help is R&D and also the fourth industrial revolution based business model, and which are really women. I mean, there are not so many women tech entrepreneurs because out of in Korea there are 17 million enterprise, the number, but only 24% are women enterprise by the number of employee. But in terms of sales, it drops 9%. So I mean, how tough it's the women entrepreneur and women enterprise. So I think there will be really many ways and a long way to go. The customized public policy support, and then this kind of international collaboration, and then opening the sales channel is really needed, and then also the STEM or STEM education for women tech entrepreneur to be more responsible and then to help them to become a leader of this fourth industrial revolution age.
Okay. I think we are running out of time, but at least it's one more.
Three more.
Okay, three more, but short and easy.
Short answer.
They're going to kill me. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So I have a couple of questions, and I guess they'll be added. The first question is about the collaboration between the women on the W20 and how you craft language. Because now with sort of the rise of anti-gender movements, you see a kind of erasure of language, right? People can't talk about gender or sexuality or something like that. So I'm curious as to when you're crafting a communique, how that works. How do you craft language that works well for 20 countries that may have very different cultural understanding and politics surrounding gender?
This is a.
That's the
It's a
Our secret.
no. It's not a secret, but as a chair of the previous W20, we were dealing our communique for more than 1 month. And when we arrived to the summit, we thought we are ready to deliver a communique in a few hours, but didn't happen. Why didn't happen? Because some of the delegates that are very different cultural biases regarding among the members, they only put one word in the last minute to say, I don't agree. So we need to redo everything, and we need to deliver a communique that is in some way is washed, and at the end is don't make the impact we most of the members want to have, just for one or two persons. So it's a pity, but it's what is happening. And that is why we are asking for data to see what is the impact of our communique, because we feel all the communique are almost similar or washed.
Okay. Ahí había otra pregunta, sí. El micrófono, si lo podéis pasar detrás, por favor. Ah, ok.
Speak loud.
Sí,
Speak
try to
loud.
speak, alto.
She said, please use the microphone.
Habla fuerte.
Está funcionando.
Can you hear? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much to every one of you. Sorry, it was very interesting. Just have one question regarding W20. Considering that only 3% of the investment funds goes to women's entrepreneur, I would like to know what are the relationship between the big companies which are investing and giving money for the W20 and the investment funds which are normally sent to promote women's entrepreneurs. So I'm really wondering why we are still at 3% funds for women entrepreneurs, whereas the money is exactly coming from these big companies constituting the W20 and willing to be the very best employers and people in the world. So, yeah, that's a question. Thank you.
Elizabeth, or shall I try?
Sure, I can follow you.
Short.
What's happening is that when you go to a man and say that I'm a bank and I will loan you $1 million, he says, can it be $1.5 million because I have a great vision, I will do a big factory. When the same bank goes to a woman and says that I have a $1 million to loan to you, the woman says, no, thank you. That's very risky. I want to grow in smaller increments. So women are not inclined to form big companies. But there is an unfairness, and I think Elizabeth can elaborate on that, because women companies are not invested. Nobody wants to purchase, nobody wants to get it bigger, so joint ventures are very few, but because of lack of knowledge, as far as I understand, and women are looking for sustainable business, not a big business that he or she will run for 20 years. That's what the interest is. But with the economic turn ups and downs, what happens is that big corporations cannot survive, but small corporations are elastic enough to survive.
And our experience is that there are small businesses all over the world owned by women. There are also very large businesses all over the world owned by women. So not only, I just came from Germany and London and Paris the last few weeks, and there are very large women-owned businesses that own businesses that do transportation, that do construction, that do a number of things. And we've also been working with the World Bank in Bangladesh, and everyone said they're all small. I met women that have 20,000 employees. And so there are women that are growing their businesses. There's a woman in business we work with that is over $1 billion or euros in annual revenue. These businesses are serving as really important mentors to women around the world to aspire to knock on the door of investors, to knock on the door of corporations. The corporations we work with, to your specific question of investment, they are working with us because they want to spend their procurement money. It's what they buy with products and services. I like the investment money because there's, all levels of investment from $10,000 $10 to $10 million and beyond. But procurement departments spend literally billions and billions of dollars on products and services. And when women earn that money through selling their products and services, not only do banks chase them and investors chase them because they have customers, but they also get to keep it. So they don't have to lose equity in their company, and they don't have to repay the loan. So for me personally, I want to see women earn that money, and then have the choice of whether or not they want to also receive equity, or if they also want to get a loan to be able to scale and leverage the purchase orders and the other things that they have. I'd like to see more corporations invest in the W20 specifically. The APEC women's work, it's hugely underfunded. The work that these folks and you all are doing in ensuring that everyone has an equal opportunity. So I think both the public sector, private sector, the multilaterals, there's a lot more investment that has to be made if we're going to get to equality in 10 years, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
thank you. I have a very quick comment or question to Susan concerning the digital inclusion. And you said that the digital tools are key for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. But I wanted to question a little bit. Okay, if you have a nice phone, a mobile phone and so on, that's not sufficient. So you see a lot of, sometimes you have reportage and you see, let's put it that way, people in development countries having all their phones, but you need education, which is the most important. So if you have just a phone to chat, this doesn't work. So it has to be combined. But maybe you can still comment on that.
Maybe I was too short because according with the time, I was trying to save time for my colleagues. The digital inclusion through devices is the tool to bring education to women and girls and men as well, in order to overcome their lack of knowledge, their lack of education, to have better quality jobs. If not, people never are going to leave the poverty. People is under the poverty because they don't have knowledge, they don't have jobs, they don't have skills. They need to learn. And digital devices are one of the key tools for that, because sometimes they are very far away from school to learn a kind of a skill. They can do through YouTube to learn how to build a table or to do something with their hands. So according with research, digital inclusion and through devices, through internet access, could accelerate the speed of bridging the gap between women and men in labor inclusion and financial inclusion as well. One very interesting example is rural women. 40% of the women in the undeveloped country lives in rural areas. Only 10% of them receive formal salary. All the other, they are in the informal economy, and also they don't have health care, they don't have access to minimum services from the state. They are invisible for the states. Digital inclusion and devices, for instance, and also those women are a victim of the violence cycle, because usually it's linked with alcohol consumption in their families, because they live, what happened in rural areas. And so the only way that women living in rural areas can be included in the formal economy is through digital inclusion. Why? Because, for instance, women that produce food, 52% of the food is across women's hands. Maybe they can sell their production to the market and they can get digital money. Those money is not taken by the husband or by their kids, male kids, and they can have or they can afford to live a violent cycle because they can afford rent a house and educate their kids because the financial inclusion through digital devices. It's very complex issue. It's much more beyond that the devices. Devices is a tool, as I explained you, but there is a lot of help that devices can bring to the people that are really invisible for the system. We are talking here for entrepreneurs, big entrepreneurs, but 50% of the population in the world is under the poverty level.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, de verdad. Vamos a terminar ya. Yo creo que si me quedo con alguna idea de todo lo que se ha comentado hoy, me quedo con la idea de persistencia, lo que habéis dicho, de la diversidad es un hecho, pero la inclusión es opcional. Entonces tenemos que aprender todos, ¿no?, a ser incluyentes. Evitar quitarnos de la cabeza esos sesgos que muchas veces tenemos. Para ello la comunicación, y yo diría la comunicación bien hecha, ¿no?, es un elemento clave. Lo que no se comunica no existe. Y tenemos que ser conscientes de que esta inclusión digital, o esta inclusión en términos generales, nos enriquece a todos, crea riqueza social. Tenemos que aprender a medir las cosas, lo que hacemos, ¿no? Está fenomenal todos estos objetivos y estas metas, pero yo diría lo que no se mide, habéis dicho hoy, no se puede valorar y no se puede mejorar, añadiría. Tenemos 10 años para conseguir la igualdad, ¿no?, real. Yo diría que nos sobran 9, o sea, hay un sentimiento de urgencia y estoy segura que además esto es así, lo que nos proponemos las mujeres lo conseguimos, el límite, en nuestras elecciones siempre decimos the sky is the limit, entonces soñemos alto y vamos a reducir todo lo que podamos entre todas, ¿no?, esos años. Hay algunos estudios que hablan hasta de 200 años, habéis sido muy optimistas, hoy me habéis dicho 10 y yo os digo, vamos a mejorarlo para la siguiente reunión que tengamos en Arabia Saudí. La tecnología es clave, sin duda, la cuarta revolución industrial. Se está trabajando mucho en todos los países. Vosotros, desde luego, sois un ejemplo y la tecnología bien utilizada puede ser una herramienta clave, como mencionaba, para esta aceleradora del cambio. La emprendeduría. Hemos hablado mucho de emprendimiento. Creo que las mujeres, cuando nos ponemos a emprender, lo hacemos muy bien. Para eso es clave estar conectadas, organizaciones como la de Elizabeth. Contemos unas con otras. Muchas veces nos ponemos a hablar, ayudémonos, de verdad, seamos conscientes de que está en nuestra mano y en nuestro camino ayudarnos. Me van a matar, lo dejo aquí, porque es que ya falta solo que me saquen de... Pero bueno, muchísimas gracias, de verdad. Gracias. He pensado que entraba Catherine y ya me...